Years ago, he was a climate warrior who pushed for a world where we conserved energy, limited emissions, and traded our reliance on fossil fuels for expanded renewable sources. By the way, he cut the deficit, wanted to decriminalize marijuana, deregulated so many industries that he gave us cheap flights and, as you heard, craft beer. Basically, all of those years ago, he was the first millennial.
And the American people and the people of the world will be forever blessed by his decades of good works. Jimmy Carter's legacy of peace and compassion will remain unique as it is timeless.
Stephen Ford speaking there, and right here the grandchild Jason Carter talking at President Jimmy Carter's funeral service today at the National Cathedral in Washington. The remarkable eulogy coming from Stephen Ford, the late Republican president's son, delivering the very eulogy his father, President Gerald Ford, wrote for his great friend and fellow President Jimmy Carter. Both had promised each other that they would speak at their funerals. Carter did present his eulogy for the 38th president following Gerald Ford's death in 2006. Well, and sitting next to one another at Jimmy Carter's service, President-elect Donald Trump and the former President Barack Obama, the two exchanging what seemed like positive words and even some laughs. And joining us now to reflect on the amazing legacy of President Carter is the former Louisville Mayor Jerry Abramson, of course a longtime Democrat yourself. I thought it was so interesting. The best line was Jason Carter saying Jimmy Carter was the original millennial from 1970, whatever.
Right.
He would have fit perfectly in this world. Do you agree?
He would. The thing that people have forgotten is, he came out of the South as a Southern governor of Georgia, and that was during George Wallace was the Southern governor of Alabama. Orville Faubus was the Southern governor of Arkansas. And yet Jimmy Carter stepped out beyond the South, got very engaged in ensuring civil rights opportunities for the African American community and gender equality. Focused a lot, as you look at his cabinet, a lot of women, a lot of African Americans, and he brought that Southern warmth, but he still had a belief that things could be better, and he did a great job at that.
How did he influence you and how you were mayor and your life in politics as a Democrat?
He focused his attention on cities, and a lot of people say, well, he's from a little old place in Georgia, a peanut farmer. But when you think about it, take the Brown Hotel here in town. It was the Urban Development Action Grant that was a program set up by Jimmy Carter, established by a guy named David Cornish, as in 4th Street Live, that family. He was in the Assistant Secretary of HUD. And with a UDAG grant, we were able to reopen the Brown Hotel, as an example. Another example is he put out an executive order that said there is no federal agency that is going to leave the city limits of a city to relocate. So, for example, the FBI ultimately in our hometown moved out to the suburbs. But during the Carter administration, he was wanting to make sure that the federal agencies that were located inside urban areas stayed in those urban areas.
Can you talk about his legacy? After he left the White House, he lost in a landslide to Ronald Reagan. His presidency wasn't considered the best in our country. In fact, one of the eulogies said today he probably wouldn't be on Mount Rushmore. But it was after he left the White House that everybody noticed him and paid more attention. Why is that?
He had a tough time. He made some very tough decisions. I mean, he's the guy that gave the Panama Canal back to the Panamanians. He's the guy when inflation occurred. I mean, we talk about inflation of 7, 8, 9% in the last several years. We're talking interest rates at 20% when Carter was there. And he reached out, made that tough decision to bring Paul Volcker in as the head of the Fed, who was a slash and cut. We all felt it, but he ultimately got control of the economy.
We saw it between Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush, and then this remarkable relationship we learned about today, the former Republican President Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter becoming great friends. What does that say to you about these statesmen?
It's a lot like Bill Clinton and W.
H.W.?
No, W.
Right.
George W. Bush, who
Right, but
came
with his
together to
father,
do
too,
things,
as well.
and his father. So, I think when you go through the 4 years, and when I was at the White House, just for the 2.5 years I was in the West Wing
in the Obama
with President Obama, I mean, what they go through is so unique. Their days are so unique that they really have this connection among themselves of all the living presidents and appreciate so much the fact that each of them made it through and moved the country in hopefully a positive direction.
Did his spirit of getting out after the White House ever influence you and your involvement in giving back to charities or anything?
He set the tone that said to folks, when you retire, get engaged. Or as a citizen, the definition of citizen is being involved in your hometown, in your community. And he did that with faith organizations, with nonprofits, with charitable organizations, and he challenged us all to step forward, step out, and make the world a better place.
So before I leave you, I have to get your grade on the winter storm of 2025. You, of course, were here through the winter storm of 1994 and then retooled the city for the great snow removal we have now today. So what's your grade for Winter Storm 2025? Are you going to give the city an A, B, C, or D?
Oh, I think I'd give them an A minus maybe, B plus, A minus. We had great difficulty, but we had 17 inches of snow and 22 below zero. I think that the Public Works Department, the Solid Waste Department, the Parks Department, all those folks who are out there taking care of business each and every day seem to be doing an exceptionally good job. And now they'll be getting into the neighborhoods. Hopefully the sunlight will help a bit. But it's just not, it's not easy when you can't gear up and always be ready for a storm and ice like unfortunately we had these last couple of days.
That mix. All right. Former Louisville Mayor Jerry Abramson, thank you for joining us.
You
Always
bet.
great to see you.
Good to be with
your
you.
perspective. Now we're going to get the latest on that 3 to 6 inch snowfall from Ben. Ben?